This is Happy Munkey.
This is Happy Munkey.
Happy Munkey. Happy Munkey.
This is Happy Munkey.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Yo, this is Mr. Autofighter Happy Munkey. I'm smoking on that gelato right now. Feel me? Get at me.
What's going on, everybody? This week, the podcast has a sponsor, ArdentCannabis.com. They're known for the Ardent Nova, which is a decarber, but now they have a new Ardent where they decarb and infuse in the same device. So if you use our code MUNKEY, MUNKEY, when you're checking out, you get $30 off your purchase. So please go on and check them out. They got a bunch of other devices. Hey, you might get lucky and find something that'll help you cook in your kitchen.
Yes. Today on the Happy Munkey Podcast, we love having strong queen boss ladies on the show. And on the boulevard, we got a real boss lady. She does a lot of journalism. She's done a lot of reporting up in this bitch. She's a motherfucking boss. And do you want to give her more details, Mr. Vladimir?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this young lady,
Man.
you know, Latina superhero
Absolutely.
is like, you know, somebody that we look up to and that has definitely set the bar high in media for Latinos and just for people in general. She's an author.
Yes,
She's
yes.
an anchor.
Yes.
Our sister from another mother, Maria Hinojosa.
Hi, you guys. You almost got it. Hinojosa.
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 Definitely please reintroduce yourself and tell everybody where they can find you.
Maria Hinojosa. Many people don't know what I look like, but they know what I sound like because they've been listening to me for 30 years. Sometimes it's really funny.
Wow.
Like I'll get in the backseat, like of a, well, you know, before the pandemic, I'd get in the backseat of a car, anywhere, any city. Seattle, Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like on the phone having a phone call. And all of a sudden, after I had finished the phone call, the driver would turn around. They'd be like, are you the lady from the radio? And I'd be like, yeah. They'd be like, oh my God. So yes, people often know me just by the voice. But yes, it is Maria Hinojosa.
Maria Hinojosa.
And I'm so thrilled to be here at Happy Munkey.
Thank you.
Congratulations on
No.
your work. Congratulations.
No. Thank you for
Other
taking out the
Latinos-
time.
Yeah. Other Latinos making headway in other kinds of business. It's, you know, we're all trying to do the same thing, get ahead.
But people like you know made us know that it's possible by the bar that you've raised and all your accomplishments already.
Wait, so before we move forward, can we let everybody know where they can find you as far as social media or like website or anything like that?
Yeah. So I have a lot of fun on Instagram. So my Instagram is Maria_la_Hinojosa. And Hinojosa is Hinojosa. So I have a lot of fun on Instagram. That's where I have the most fun, you know, where I post like the real me. But I have a pretty large presence on Twitter. Well, I mean, you know what? I don't know what's considered large anymore, but I have a following on Twitter. And there, what is it? Maria_Hinojosa. And then on Facebook, I'm still there on Facebook. I still make appearances on Facebook. And I think it's just Maria L. Hinojosa. So yeah, I'm around. But I really like IRL, mostly.
Okay.
In real life.
Mm-hmm. That's what this guy loves.
So we wanted to start, Maria, by asking you, because you have so many different things that you've accomplished. Have you done? You know, we got to start one at a
30
time.
years rocking.
I know that you're a founder and director of Futuro Media Group.
Yes, that's right.
Can you elaborate a little bit for the people out there that don't know what it is and what this media group does?
Yeah, so basically the short version is I'm born in Mexico. And my dad is a nerd Mexican dude from Tampico who basically decides that he wants to become a research doctor dedicated to research.
Shit.
And he decides he wants to help people who are deaf to hear. So he gets a job. He gets recruited by the University of Chicago.
You're being humble.
And
He's
he
brilliant.
helps. He is brilliant. He is.
He's brilliant because I'm like, what?
I didn't know that until I went to see a doctor like about 10 years ago. And he told me, anybody who works with the inner ear is like a genius. And I was like, what? And they were like, the inner ear is the most complicated part of the human body. And I was like, bruh. So my dad was a genius. He gets recruited to the University of Chicago. And we're all basically raised, all the Mexican citizens, except for him. He became an American citizen. And even though we never saw ourselves in the media, like there were no podcasts, there were no people of color doing like the news, no journalism. But somehow I consume a lot of journalism along with other things. And so, I don't know, this little dream comes to my head when I'm in college already. I moved to New York. So I'm a Mexican who moves to New York in 1979. There were no Mexicans here, by the way. There were like three of us. It was, very Puerto Rican, very Cuban, very Dominican. I had never met any Dominicans until I came to New York.
Oh, we ruined it.
And yeah, it was real. And so basically I start doing college radio at Columbia University.
Okay, Columbia,
and at Columbia. And so I start empiezo un programa de radio que se llama Nueva Canción y Demás, que es bilingüe. We start doing our show in Spanish, Nueva Canción y Demás, doing all political music. It was really, really hip. And then I become a journalist. I'm the first Latina ever hired at NPR in the newsroom at CNN.
I give a round of applause for that. Talk about groundbreaking. Come on.
Absolutely. That was huge. That's crazy.
So, and then after all of that, because a lot of that, you really are basically working for the man. You're working for somebody else. And that's interesting, but also can get tiring when we really want to create like you guys are doing and have done. And that's what leads me to create Futuro Media. Is basically this notion of like, wait a second, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I don't want, honestly, and I write about this in the book, I don't want to have to convince another white man that the stories I want to tell and report and investigate are important and legitimate and should be discussed. I mean, you have to remember, most of the news media that we consume in this country, white men, straight, cis white men, cis male white men of privilege are leading that stuff. Not to say that they're bad human beings. I mean, I like a lot of these guys.
They're just
like
viewing, they're just putting things out there in their perspective.
Exacto. Entonces, what we're saying in Futuro Media is we have a perspective, right? We have a perspective, and it's as legitimate and equal to yours. And so we're going to be the journalists. We're going to be the ones in charge. That's why I create Futuro Media, where basically I'm the boss.
Absolutely. And then you got your home, like you said, freedom of speech is important because, like you just stated, I'm sure that you weren't able to just talk about all the things that you wanted to just talk about, right?
Well, for example, like when you work in the mainstream news, like there in my newsroom, there are words that we don't use. For example, we don't use the word minority.
But you don't use it because they tell you not to use it? Like they give you like a list of words not to use?
No.
Okay.
In the mainstream media out there in the world, people talk about minority groups and they report about minority groups. At my newsroom, we don't talk about minority groups because we're not a minority.
It's a lot of us
That's what
here.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
We report about people of color. That's what we do best. But I don't ever refer to us as a minority, members of a minority group. And, we're not minorities. Latinos right now are the second, after white people, white voters, we're the second largest voting bloc in the United States of America, more so than African Americans.
That's crazy.
So together, African Americans and Latinos, Asian, Native American, we're the majority. So that's a term in my newsroom that we don't use. We don't use the term illegal to refer to a human being. So you'll never hear us talk about illegal immigrants. You'll never hear us talk about, es ilegal, that illegal person. No,
Yeah.
we never use the term illegal to refer to a human being because we're human beings. We're not illegal. You may commit an illegal illegal act. And recently, up until recently, smoking, I'm old school, so I call it a joint. I know y'all call it all different kinds of terms, but I'm just like, smoking a joint was illegal.
Joint is the most popular, don't worry.
And still, right? So so those are the things that we're able to do with the newsroom that I run. That's basically why I created my newsroom, was to create my own media the same way that you guys are creating media along with other things.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the perfect time, Maria, because from me talking just like to the general public of all walks of life, it seems like people have lost the faith in mainstream media. So it's a great time to have, media groups like you and us and other people giving their own perspective, because people have lost faith in mainstream media. And I mean all types of people from all walks of life and all classes. So really think people are really open right now, receptive to new ways of thinking and viewing and broadcasting.
True. And you know what? I'm very critical of the mainstream media. I mean, I play in the mainstream media. I appear on MSNBC every now and then. I used to be on a lot more. So that's something that's interesting, that suddenly, you're not showing up, which is weird. So, my show is heard on public radio stations across the country. I'm publishing a book. I'm publishing my book, Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America.
That looks nice.
Which I know it's very fancy, very fancy, very, very fancy.
Hey.
This is going to be published by Simon & Schuster on September 15th. So I play in the mainstream media. I dabble there, but I run my own company and we produce our own material. And I do think that, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in the sense of the mainstream media, because it's very powerful. It's mainstream, right? So I'm not going to throw it all out. I still want to make sure that estamos como indagando, that we're always poking that bear. But I do think that, people want different kinds of media. And now in this moment, we're all kind of competing. I mean, right now, this show is competing with the most powerful podcast in the country, which is called The Daily, released by the New York Times. This show could try to get as many listeners as that show. We're kind of on equal footing. And in that sense, it's good for American media and journalism. But I do think we need to demand more from the mainstream, and we need to make sure that they are representing us, because they do have such a large influence.
Well, it's important that people like you understand how to dabble, because if not, how people like me and Vlad gotta understand how to even play on that type of level.
Yeah, in fact, in the book, I write a lot about that dabbling in, and I don't know how it is in your business, in the cannabis business, because I actually want to report about the cannabis business. But in the world of journalism, you have to basically be able to, like, ¿cómo se llama? Shoot the shit with, oftentimes with white guys. So you got to be able to just kind of like, so, and just kind of like, and you have to be able to do that. It's kind of like playing golf, although I don't play golf, but you have to know how to move in those circles. And I'm one of a handful of Latinas that has been there.
I want to understand something, Maria, because you just, you have so many accolades and it's all normal to you, but, you're very inspirational and you've done a lot of monumental things, and you just skipped over real quick earlier, very briefly, like it's nothing, but it's really something. I want you to elaborate. How does a Latina, from, originally from Mexico, come to New York and end up being the first Latina on NPR national program like that?
National Public Radio. So here's the thing. I told you that my dad was a nerdy nerd, a scientist. So we were not poor. We were not working class. We were not rich. Pero no nos faltaba claro, I grew up with an immigrant dad, so everything was always super controlled, and there was never enough and all that kind of stuff. But I had privilege. I ended up going to the University of Chicago High School, which is a very prestigious high school. It's where it's the school where Barack Obama and Michelle used to send their kids before they moved to the White House. So I was able to go to that private school because my dad was part of the university, so we didn't have to pay the full tuition. That's how we did it. And so I understood privilege. And for me, privilege has always made me understand that I have to give back. And so even though I write in the book, Once I Was You, a lot about the imposter syndrome and just never feeling good enough and always feeling like I was having to prove myself all the time, I forced myself to battle through that because I knew I had privilege. I was like, no puede ser de que tú, que has ido a las mejores escuelas, you've gone to the best schools, you've grown up around people of privilege, that you're gonna kind of cave to your own insecurities. Mm-hmm. I was like, no. You have to go into that. When NPR, and I'm the first Latina, and I'm in those editorial meetings, and I was like, levanta la mano, raise your hand, because, it's an editorial meeting and you're convincing stories about your idea. You're convincing people about your ideas to do a story about this. And it's a very scary thing. And it's a lot of very powerful and smart white men and women. And I would literally force my hand up, I'd push it up. I'd be like, no, go ahead. Because I was terrified, but I understood, I had to do this. I was the first.
Yeah, you got to participate.
I was in that space. I had to participate. I just had to. I think that's the long answer. So how do you do it? Is because I basically just said, you have no choice. You have a responsibility. And because there is a large audience for the work that I do, and so I also feel their love.
How long has Maria Latino USA, which you're the anchor of, how long has that been going on for? And I know that that's one of the most popular shows on NPR. How has that come about? And how long has it been for you doing that?
So we started that show in 1993.
1993.
So it's almost going to be 30 years. In 2023, it will be 30 years old. It's 27 years old now. Damn. And I know I started it when I was 3. I know I look great. Este es Latino USA.
You're correct. You're correct.
Thank you. So Latino USA started because Latinos were pushing for a show like that. It did not start because public radio is like, oh, we need to have a show for Latinos. It started because Latinos and Latinas were pushing for it. Mm-hmm. Demanded it. I mean, you guys are in New York, so you know what Channel 13 is, right?
It's the public access.
It's the public television, not public access, public television.
PBS, right?
PBS, exacto, public broadcasting system. In the 1970s, Latinos took over Channel 13 and shut it down because they were demanding to be on the air. That's how political the public media airwaves are. So people were demanding for the visibility of Latinos and Latinas on NPR. And that's how I ended up basically, creating an inroad, getting hired, creating a position, then being named to anchor Latino USA, helping to envision this show. And the truth is that I think people thought we'd be around for maybe 5 years.
If that.
Maybe 6. Yeah, if that. Kind of oh. And our audience right now is one of the audiences on public radio that is growing exponentially. We're actually seeing market audience growth. And it's bro, you've been on the air for 27 years. ¿Qué es esto? And it's because we've changed. We've adapted. We're different than when we first started. We've kind of stayed with the times. And the reporting that we do, the journalism that we do is very beautiful. It's very dramatic. you know, it's you know, some of it is very sad. We do documentaries about immigrants in very challenging situations, ya tú sabes. But we also uplift, you know, I don't know if you guys know, for example, the most famous woman tattoo artist, Kat Von D.
Yes.
Do you guys know? You know, she's Latina.
I had no idea. I didn't know that.
She's Chicana, right? Isn't she? No?
She's Argentinian, born in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
But she is raising her kid only speaking Spanish, and she's married to a Chicano goth artist, musician. So we did a big profile of her, because a lot of people don't realize how many Latinos and Latinas are. We're everywhere. We're doing everything. Not everybody knows that Happy Munkey is run, you know, by
they don't know. Yeah,
Dominicans.
they did not know. A lot of people didn't know until we started like coming out a little bit more. But
yeah.
All right, so before we get too deep, because I know there's a lot of things we can talk about, because there's a lot of questions we want to ask you, because you're a boss lady and you've been through a lot of shit. But the most simplest question we love to ask everybody is here, because yes, this is Happy Munkey and this is definitely a cannabis show, is please tell us, when was the first time you got high?
The first time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because you've been through all this stuff, so I know cannabis had to be involved through all of this.
Oh my God! Wow, I've never talked about this.
This is what we on the Happy
That's
Munkey
what the
show for.
Boulevard
That's why
does.
we on the Boulevard. We like to talk about everything.
You gotta get all the juicy details, Maria.
Oh my God!
Maria,
Wow.
you gotta say Maria.
Definitely Maria. Wow. Okay.
Was it a joint?
Yeah, no, it's all right. So, well, I feel bad because I never told my dad this, you know, and my dad, may he rest in peace. So, papi, perdón, you know, que I'm kind of like revealing this because I never asked. Right. I never told you this. And a lot of the book actually has to do with kind of my relationship with mi papa. Very beautiful. It's not heavy handed, but, you know, one of the things that happens with, well, actually, it's very pertinent to this story, because I think what happens with Latinas and Latinos and immigrants is that we feel very torn, right? We want to be really 100% real to who we are, like our roots. But we're also like in this country, and this country really represents kind of like really radical, free thinking, independence, kind of go get it, you know, egotistical, you know, quítate tú pa ponerme yo, you know, doggy dog kind of thing.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
so oh, I forgot the question.
The first time smoker.
I'm back. So what happens is that it's always like this, like you want to be the good Mexican daughter.
But
Porque sí.
yeah.
But por otra parte, you're also drawn to being rebellious, because you don't want to be that. Because you don't want to be your parents, right? Because your parents represent the old traditional kind of thing. Bueno, para que ¿cómo te hago el cuento? So, you know, regular grammar school stuff, I had a group of girlfriends and they basically me tiraron para afuera. They ostracized me. They just threw me out. And I was like kind of without a group of girlfriends in grade school. And my grade school was very diverse. So I had black friends. I
like
had
some
white
Breakfast
friends, I had
Club
Jewish
shit,
friends.
like, you know, like too cool for school, like hierarchy.
No, this is grammar school, so it's
Yes, this is a
baby
little bit
stuff. I
different.
mean,
Yeah,
this is different. I mean, like I'm talking about third grade, fourth grade kind of stuff. Okay, so basically, I become friends with the group of girls that were known as like the rebel girls. There were triplets. It was the triplets. They were known as the triplets. It was
They had their own
three
crew.
girls, Heidi, Danielle, and the third one. And there was another, you know, and we basically, like, we were pretty rebellious, and you know, like they smoked cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really like cigarettes, but, you know, I would smoke cigarettes every now and then. Like, ooh, it was gross. We would pick up the butts off the street. Ugh, what the fuck were we thinking? It's gross. I hadn't thought of this
crazy,
stuff.
yeah.
But they had boyfriends, you know, so now we're talking sixth grade. Sixth grade. We were little kids. I was 12. But the mother of, actually the mother of the triplets was nowhere to be seen. But the mother of the other girl, Stephanie, she was very hip. She was like a hippie. You know, she was white. Her compañero was black. Like, you know, they was very hippie-esque. And the neighborhood where I was growing up in Chicago was very hippie-esque. It was the University of Chicago community of Hyde Park. So very university-like, very bohemian. And so I would go to their house after school and we would, you know, just hang out and they would smoke cigarettes. And then one Friday night, we were having dinner and it was a bunch of 12-year-olds, 12 and 13-year-olds. And Stephanie's mother and her boyfriend, we sat in a circle and basically they passed around. Déjame pensar qué era. Oh my God, was it a pipe? I can't remember now if it was a pipe or if it was a joint. No, it was definitely not a bong. Definitely not. No. This is guys, I'm talking about 1973. So yeah, there were bongs because it was the 60s, but no, this was and it was a young mother basically getting high with her, not even teen. I mean, we were 12 and 13. So there's something cool about that, but there's also something like, really?
Wow, she was wild. Yeah.
You know, kind of like, entonces lo que pasa is that I was not allowed to be sleepovers, not allowed to do sleepovers. Entonces mi papá me vino a buscar. It was always set, you know, at 9:00, I'm coming to get you. And so my dad came to get me when I was high as a 12-year-old. Oh, me da mucha pena.
Okay.
I felt so bad, you know, because I remember just feeling like my throat was I felt like I had a piece of coal in my throat. So I don't really think I got high, but I feel like I had the physical experience of something that happened. And I remember like something like feeling like a piece of coal, very hot. So something was burning in my throat. And I just remember sitting in the backseat thinking, if only Dad knew, and kind of like,
paranoia.
I'm a bad Mexican girl. And make sure he doesn't notice and, you know, so I didn't really experience anything. And then I went into high school and there I started hanging out with my brother, actually Jorge, and he was older. And all of his friends, they were all smoking pot. And so it was kind of around. So now I'm, you know, 13, 14 years old. Yeah. And it's kind of around me, but I never really enjoyed it. And the one time when I actually experienced getting high would have been maybe when I was maybe at the end of my freshman year of high school. Y no me gustó para nada. I kind of freaked out, honestly. I had that freak out, which happens, which is just the not the paranoia. It was the double spacing, and now I kind of, you know, I'm like, wow, that was.
They might have put something in your weed, girl, because that sound like some 70s trick. They put some PCP or some acid or something in that.
Oh shit. That you're scary. Man.
I don't know, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they put something in your weed. You seen some spaces in 3D.
No, it wasn't hallucinogenic. It was more just like the head thing that happens when you get high, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I was
like
young,
and
so had head rush. So basically, I stayed away from it. I was very minimally connected to it. Siempre estaba a mi alrededor. People were always smoking. I'd take a toke. I do remember the first time I took a hit off a bong. That was unforgettable. Oh my God.
Unforgettable.
Oh my God. We were at a party at a university. It was the University of Chicago party, but we were high schoolers. Somehow we got into a college party and somebody took out this thing that I had never seen before. You know, it was like, you know, it was so maybe 3.5, 4 feet. And I was like, ¿qué es eso? And they were like, don't worry. Just put your mouth on it, and when we tell you to suck, you suck. I was like, okay. Oh, my God. But, you know, I had experiences. It was really extraordinary. My head blew off. But I had experiences like seeing Peter Tosh performing on stage with his spleef you know, with a
crazy.
spliff this big. You know, he was singing
Huge.
on stage with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones.
Crazy.
And then later, much later in my life, actually, that's what ends up happening is that my husband, who's an artist, a very well-known, famous Dominican artist named Germán Pérez, he was using cannabis as part of his, you know, kind of work artistically, and that was when I actually began to enjoy it, because I never actually bought marijuana. Never. I mean, I was like, that's how little I smoked. I never ever had it, bought it, para nada.
You were a social smoker whenever, you know, it was a social setting or whatever.
Completely.
Right.
But after 9/11, that's when cannabis, I remember Germán said to me, I would smoke on the weekends. It was something that I would do only on the weekends. And Germán said, that's when I was suffering through very extreme PTSD, because I was a correspondent for CNN at the time. And that's when Germán said, ¿Quieres fumar? De repente te haría bien. Do you want to smoke? I remember it was maybe a week, and it was the middle of the week. And I was like, no, pero es que I have to go to work tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, but maybe. And I remember smoking and just like, whoa, wow, this is really helping me to take a pause from the horror, because I was a correspondent for CNN. And so I was seeing horror every single day. And that's when cannabis became much more a part of my life. And when, frankly, I'm really happy to be able to talk about the fact that it was self-medicating, because I wasn't going to take any kind of pharmaceutical pill, and I'm not a drinker. But it is the thing that did help me kind of process through PTSD. So yo le doy muchas gracias a la mota. La motita, como le decimos en México.
That's crazy. So you mentioned something that we kind of like to talk about everywhere, especially now that we got a Latina here, right? So you mentioned the whole feeling the stigma from dad. You know, good Mexican dad is not feeling the whole cannabis vibe. You know, the same thing with Dominicans. You know, we got the older generation where, you know, mota.
That Latino stigma with the cannabis is strong.
Right. So now, you know, you said, you know, you're praising your dad and, you know, you're saying sorry, but I'm sure your dad will be very proud because you're a boss lady. You know what I mean? So you kind of defeating the stigma. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool that, you know, we kind of share that bond, because that's kind of where we come from. Like, damn, you know, we don't want to disappoint mom and shit, but this is what we love, you know?
And we always like to explain to, like, you know, people that, you know, are just like, you know, more like third, fourth generation. Like, you guys think stigma's bad in America, like the last 50 years. You have no idea the stigma in Latino countries, where they look at it like if you smoke heroin or you smoke crack when it came to cannabis. So it's like, you know, we've always, like you said, like we had that torn where we wanted to be rebellious and revolutionary because we were born in the U.S., but we're first generation Dominican. So we have this heavy influence of the way that things are seen back in the old ways in our household.
Except that here's the weird thing. I found out that, like, I think maybe even mi abuelita was using the marijuana plant, como los palitos,
yes,
in alcohol for arthritis.
Look at that.
So marijuana, la mota, is not something that is foreign. Even though the thing is that the narrative, as you know, because I taught a class about marijuana. So I'm a professor. Well, look, I'm Mexican. I'm an immigrant, so I have 16 jobs.
That stereotype ain't wrong. Fuck that.
You know that. So one of them is that I'm a professor, and I ended up teaching a class about how it is that immigrants became seen as illegal during the same period of time that marijuana went from being highly illegal to legal. ¿Cómo es de que eso pasó? Todo eso es parte de una narrativa. Mira, what happens with marijuana in the United States is very similar to what happens with cocaine in the United States also. Both of these were legal, right? They were legal. They were not a crime. It was not a crime to consume. Race becomes involved. cocaine is tied to black men. And the whole thing is that, oh, wait, black men are going to do cocaine and they're going to rape white women. Cocaine must be made illegal. In the same way that marijuana, Mexicans do marijuana. Mexican men are going to smoke marijuana and they're going to rape white women. Therefore, must be declared illegal. Like, I'm simplifying it. It. But basically, marihuanero is a narrative that was created in the United States against Mexicanos who were maybe consuming marijuana, who maybe we were, in fact, coño, because we were fucking building your railroads, and doing all of your hard work and not getting paid, etc. And we brought this from the motherland. From I don't know enough about the history, but desde los aztecas, vamos a decir,
Absolutely.
People were consuming
for a long time.
So, but the United States, the American media, categorizes and labels it as Mexican marihuaneros. That is how we are first kind of categorized. We are seen as druggies, and marijuana is our drug. Black men, it's cocaine, and so Mexicanos and Latinos begin to consume that same stupid narrative. De que la marihuana esto, que la marihuana aquello.
Plus the church. Let's not forget the church.
Thank you very much. Plus the church, which, by the way, like, I love liberation theology in terms of Catholicism. It is a beautiful form of Catholicism. But I am not a believer in organized religion. Con todo respeto, yo soy muy espiritual, so I'm not diminishing that. But I don't believe in a religious kind of outlook that is telling you what you can and can't do. And frankly, as a Latina Mexican raised as a Catholic,
yeah, they pushing that on heavy.
Dude, why do you want me to go to confess? I haven't done anything wrong. But now I have to go to, me tengo que ir a confesar, so I have to create something to say that I did wrong, even though I did nothing wrong. What's that? And now you're punishing me. It's some weird shit. So we do end up con este prejuicio. And one of the reasons why I wanted to write about and talk about and it's very, by the way, it's not a big part of the book. It's not a huge part of the book. I would have liked for it to be a little bit more, but they had to cut 100,000 words out of the book, so a lot of stuff had to go. But Lord. I do believe in taking away the stigma, and now the person who I never thought would ever come around, ever, mi mamá, has come around. I mean, she's not consuming. No, I mean, mamá tiene 83
but the information,
años,
she's willing to receive the information.
But she's willing to, because I basically at one point, I'm sorry to reveal, but I was like, Ma, look, seriously, like, of the entire family, you're one of the few who don't smoke. The majority of todo mundo fuma.
Right. Like,
I mean, maybe they don't smoke all the time, every day, but
everybody's okay with it. Right.
But, tú eres la que no. Entonces she was like, oh, okay. And also because my other hipper aunts who are in their 80s do smoke. And they're like, ya Berta, deja eso. They do.
Oh, man. What was it, Maria, que you felt comfortable with? I don't know if you had did it before, but in this book, basically you came out of the cannabis closet publicly and like on record, like in your book, like, really telling people how it affected your life. Was this like the first time you really did that, or had you really publicly mentioned it before in the same manner?
Never, and you're my first interview with members of the cannabis community.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Boulevard.
So I mean, to be honest with you, I'm hoping that this inspires other people to ask me to join their podcasts, because I want to honor this community. Why? Because, part of what I've done as a journalist has always been to look at the other, or communities que están como echados para allá, or, like, the South Bronx. I've always loved the South Bronx because people always trash the South Bronx. This is how I move in the world. I speak to people that a lot of people don't speak to. Like, before even I would speak to white supremacists, because nobody would speak to white supremacists. They were like, now everybody speaks to them, right? And they have so much visibility. But I'm always looking for like the underground.
Yeah, who's not getting
And
reached?
so, exactly. And so to be able to talk about cannabis, and it's what it can do for people, is to me very important, because this is not a community that should be set aside. Incredibly creative people are part of the cannabis community. Can we think about, let's say, Frida Kahlo, and I don't know if Diego Rivera smoked, but definitely Frida Kahlo smoked. I don't know if Frederick Douglass smoked, but maybe he did. I know he smoked a pipe, maybe he smoked. I don't know enough about our real founding fathers and founding mothers in this country, the native people,
Well,
who are our ancestors, right?
We know the first flag was made of hemp.
Bueno, entonces, so
We know one of the biggest musical revolutions in history, which is jazz, is all inspired by cannabis, and all was done for people to enjoy while consuming cannabis.
see, now that's very interesting, and thank you for saying so, because I think that the incorrect narrative is that actually jazz is very heroin tied, and it's like what you guys are saying is like no.
Louis Armstrong was very public about his cannabis use and stuff like that. Absolutely.
What did you just say, Louis Armstrong?
Yes.
Oh
He was all the way public with it.
no!
Yes.
Oh, see, now I'm having, because Louis Armstrong is like Louis Armstrong. Wow.
Right. It's crazy.
Thank you for that correction. And I'm a huge jazz aficionado.
So
like
we
jazz,
in here.
jazz is on my radio in my apartment 24 hours a day. Jazz is on the radio, old school radio, the kind that you dial. We listen to jazz on the radio.
I'm amazed I could just put you on to anything. Shit, lady like
Exactly.
you, genius like you. So I want to ask you a real quick, simple question that I'm sure a lot of people will ask you. So why the title "Once I Was You"?
So we really struggled with the title. No sabes. Oh my God, you guys struggled so much, because when you're writing a book like this, you're not thinking about the title. That's not the way it works. You're thinking about the construction of the book. The book is really multiple books in one. It's not just my story. There's a lot of immigration history. There's a lot of journalism and kind of inside the business journalism. So I kind of tattletale on a few people about stuff that they pulled. It's a feminist manifesto in many ways, because I'm a survivor of rape and I didn't know it. I didn't really understand it. And then there's like just American history, racism, civil rights movement, and immigration policy. How is it that this country says it loves immigrants, pero coño nos tratan como mierda? Like they treat us like shit. Like, how did that happen? So trying to deconstruct that. So I actually, the ¿cómo se llama? I don't even remember what it's called. Hold on. Maybe that's because I already smoked. Let's see. The introduction was written after I had written all of the chapters. I went back to write the introduction. And the introduction is called A Letter to a Girl at a Mcallen Airport. And this is a story of a little girl who I see in the airport in Mcallen, Texas, who is one of the children who has been taken from her parents. She's an immigrant refugee child. And she's with another group of children. I don't remember if it was 10 or 12 or 15 kids who are being, they're in the airport. They're about to be, frankly, trafficked.
Wow.
By the government.
That's when they were putting kids in cages.
They're still putting kids in cages, please. They are still, every single night, there are children who look like you and me and my son and my family who are sleeping inside a cage. Yes. Entonces, this is a letter to a little girl in the Mcallen airport, and it's me kind of encountering her and this moment of what I'm seeing, what I'm witnessing in front of my face. Donald Trump built his entire administration and his campaign on making little girls like her a threat, on making men like you a threat. And so I basically, at the end, I'm saying to her, I'm speaking. I'll just read this part of the book. So I'm in the airport now. I'm in front of these kids, and I'm talking to the man who is trafficking them, this government agent. I'm talking to him because he wouldn't let me speak to the kids, but I'm actually speaking to them. They all speak Spanish. Todos son niñitos desde 5 años a como 14 años. They're kids.
God. Horrible.
Like a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old. Kids who don't know each other, with adults who don't know them, who are being taken to cities they don't know. So I'm saying to them, I continued speaking to the kids. Ellos tienen el derecho de decirle lo que quieran a una periodista o no. Quiero decirles que estamos al tanto, que traten de no tener miedo, que ustedes no son los enemigos. Children, you have the right to speak to journalists. You are wanted. You are not the enemies. I said all of this in Spanish because I wanted you, little girl, to understand me, to hear my voice and know that I saw you. I see you because once I was you.
That was deep.
Entonces lo que pasa is de que in the writing of this book, what ends up happening, you guys, is that I realized, I didn't know this, that in fact, when I arrived in this country, me trataron de quitar de mi mamá. So I could have been that little girl. I could have been.
You.
Yeah. And also I think like the statement here is like, I want people to see ourselves. Like we want to see ourselves in each other, right? We don't want people to look at us like, Oño, you immigrant, you Spanish speaking, you Dominican, you marihuanero, you this. No, we want you to see yourself in me. That's how I try to move in the world, is I try to see myself in you.
As a human being, not as not some box to check off.
Exacto.
Now, Maria, I heard, in the urban neighborhoods where we grew up, you get all the best information from the barbershop.
The best rumors.
That's where you get the real juice and the real credible information is from the barbershop. What they told me in the barbershop in my neighborhood is that you had previously done a book based on the gangs in New York. Can you elaborate on that to us and help us understand how did you, what was the epiphany in writing a book about such a this thing?
So when I, one summer in Chicago, I ended up working in the community known as Pilsen. It's the Mexican barrio in New York City. And I was actually working with young people, and a lot of them happened to, be tied to gangs, the Latin Kings, actually, back then. And I'm talking about 1980, 1981.
Wow.
Entonces I had exposure. And so again, for me, somebody who was in a gang was not a gang member. Ah!
Yeah, to you. Yeah, it was just, okay, I know him. He's from down the block.
I know him. Yeah. He's a sweetie, baby face, Mario, I'm thinking of the names that they had. They were people I knew. And so being anywhere near whatever's a gang member or something was not something strange for me. And in New York City, in the year, I am going to forget the year because I'm really bad with years, but it would have been in the early 1990s, a very famous crime occurred. You guys probably remember. It was a kid by the name of Brian Watkins who was killed in the subway. He was stabbed to death when he protected his mom, who was getting her purse ripped away, and they were on their way to the U.S. Tennis Open. They were catching the number 7 train, and it was a very famous crime in New York in the early 1990s because it was youth violence. And people hadn't really seen that, like teenagers with weapons. And of course, it was like, oh, it's all kids of color.
Right.
You know, it's all Black and Latinos. And it really wasn't, but that was kind of like, and if you go back to the newspaper at that time, like the New York Post and the Daily News, it was like gangs, you know, gang members attack Utah tourists, you know, murder in the subways. It was like very amarillista, very yellow. And I was like
gangs
you know
didn't
what?
happen in the 70s for some reason, but okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I know gangs. I'm not so sure this is what you call a gang. And so what I did, because this is what a journalist does, is that I got on a subway and I went out to the neighborhood where the alleged perpetrators lived, or perpetrator. His name was Rockstar. And I hung out, just hanging out with the people, you know, as a journalist. And I was like, it was like, there weren't gangs. What they were is crews. And you guys all get a crew. People understand it's a crew. It's your crew. Your crew is different than your gang. A gang is a hierarchical organization that has a top-down organization. You have to be, you know, jumped in. There's initiation. There are things that you have to do that are part of being in a gang. But your crew, you know, honestly, your crew, you may go fuck somebody up. You may not do all good things with a crew, but it's a loose thing. And so the book ended up being an interview, a series of interviews with gang members, but it's actually called Crews, CREWS, Gang Members Talk to Maria Hinojosa. And so it was a book of interviews with members of crews. In New York, there was a Latino crew out in Queens that knew this kid, Rockstar, who had committed this crime. I did a story about it for NPR, and an editor heard it. And she said, would you write this book? I like the way that you talk to young people. I like the way that you don't have a judgment when you ask your questions. And so I did a book of interviews. And I hung out with this crew in Queens. And I hung out with a crew of girls from Puerto Rican girls, Latina girls from the Lower East Side. And I hung out with a crew in Harlem. That was pretty intense.
Harlem.
Yeah, that was, this guy was like, he was actually talking to me about his father, and he said about his father, he said, no, my dad does white collar crime. And I was like, because his father was like, I would call, and so the father would answer. The father was like, hello, you know, what's up? You know, I mean, it was like, so he was like white collar crime. I was like, what is this guy doing in a bank? You know, dealing with Wall Street. And I said, what kind of crime? And he was like, oh, well, you know, we go down to Wall Street over at lunchtime, and he dresses up, he wears a suit, and we go into the fancy restaurants. And when people aren't looking, we take their suit jackets, because they'll hang their suit jackets over the seat, and we'll just take the suit jacket, or you know, do the thing. The New York hustle, reach into the pocket, take out somebody, you know. And so he was like, it's white collar crime because we're committing it against people who work in white collar. I haven't told that story in a long time. You guys are making me remember a lot of funny stuff. Thank you.
That's what we want.
So that was the first book. It was a book of interviews with gang members, different people who are part of crews. And then I wrote a second book about somebody who you know. It's actually called Raising Raul, Adventures Raising Myself and My Son.
So how was that? What was the thought process? Because now we all know 20, you know, in the 2000s and this new era of modern day living, you know, parenting has changed so much. You know, me and him are newly found fathers, so we completely understand. You know, I have a 6-year-old, his daughter, a 3-year-old. So we're just learning. So what is your perspective on parenting now in this new modern day?
You know what, I think you have to be really honest. I think actually, that was one of the things that we did hide from the kids was when we consumed cannabis, was actually Herman and I did not want our kids to see us smoking, because we didn't want them to think that smoking per se was okay.
Right.
Do you understand?
The act of smoking, yeah.
Like the smoking, like if we would have...
Yeah, because they'll pick up cigarettes by mistake or something.
Exacto.
Yeah, I get it.
So we didn't want them to see that. But other than that, we were very honest. And I think I'm a big believer in honesty. We were very authentically and organically tied to our immigrant roots. Herman and I, we speak Spanish in the home. Mostly, Raul Ariel learned Spanish first. He didn't know a word of English when we dropped him off at pre-K when he was 3 years old. He was like, what? So very much the belief in raising kids, if we can, multilingually. Honesty. They've got to be able to feel like they can be honest with you, because these things, they're going to be exposed to issues of race, racism, sexism, drugs. We don't want them to be consuming stuff that's bad. I remember having a conversation and saying, look, we can talk about drugs and we have to. This was early on. And I just remember early on just saying, but please do me a favor, don't consume anything white.
Great advice.
That's right. That's a different kind.
That's
We're talking about something else.
Yeah, that's a different
You know,
vibe.
So we have to talk about that. I realized that with my daughter, I think with my son too, I think it's harder, a mom with a son, but with my daughter, very open conversations around sex and sexuality. Because I realized now in the writing of the book, actually it was in the writing of the book, that I wanted to make sure she was never assaulted. And so that was why I felt like it was really important to be super open and clear with our communication. So yeah, I think your daughters will need that. Know that they can have open communication. And a lot of love, raising Latino and Latina children, raising kids of color, of any background, immigrant background, even white folks who are raising allyship kids, but for them, a lot less. For people of color right now, this is a really challenging time. I think about the fact that I was being raised in a really challenging time in the United States of America, the 1960s. And everybody kind of looks back to that moment like, whoa, and I write about it. That's what the book is. There's a big chunk about that, being raised in the 60s and 70s in the civil rights era, seeing Martin Luther King like he was alive, like he was alive. He spoke to me. And in a lot of ways, I trace my roots back to those moments. So we're living through those moments now. Your kids are consuming this now. The things that they're hearing are impacting them. The things that they hear about Donald Trump make them afraid. The things that they hear about, whatever, they see people getting arrested and any of that, they're taking it in. I just wrote an op-ed for the New York Times. I don't know if it's going to get published, but the first line that I write about is that I don't remember Nixon running on his law and order platform the way Donald Trump is running on a law and order platform, which is a bunch of bullshit. It's racism. But I do remember being a little girl, 6 years old, and living in fear and knowing that if George Wallace got elected, who was an avowed racist and a segregationist, that as a little Mexican girl, I was going to have to find a basement to hide in. Esas cosas te marcan. And so all I'm saying is that they also produce human beings who are badasses, chingonas in the Mexican word. Yeah.
Like yourself.
Yeah, these times do produce that. They do.
And that's why you decided to write this book about parenting, because you understand the complexity of it. What was it, the epiphany that you felt like you had to put it down on paper and really express yourself?
No, to be honest with you, I was hoping to write a book about other people. I wanted to write a book about women being mothers of color and kind of managing, becoming the majority, no longer being, minority mothers raising kids of color, but rather like, wait, it's a multicultural world. How are we doing it? And the publishing industry was not interested in that book. They were like, but we want to hear your story. You're a new mother. How are you doing this? How are you managing? What lessons are you passing on? And so it was, it's a beautiful book. I haven't read it in a while, but people really love it. It's out of print now. Maybe we should bring it back. It's called Raising Raul. adventures raising myself and my son. And it is a book about being a Latina mother. And sadly, it didn't sell a lot. So I'm really scared about sales, which is why we really want everybody in the cannabis community to buy this book.
Gonna buy it.
Please buy 5
Once I Was
copies.
You.
Give it away. Once I Was You.
Once I Was You. Where can they buy the copy online?
You can find all of the links on my social media. Just go to Simon & Schuster and put in Maria Hinojosa. Once I Was You, the links will come up. But they're everywhere. So it didn't sell a lot, which is why it took me a long time to write another book, because it's very scary. There's a lot of pressure on us as Latino and Latina authors. We have to perform. So it's scary, you know. So when I say that, especially to the cannabis community, because I know that there's money in the cannabis community. It's not like it was before, where if you were tied to cannabis, somehow you were kind of like scraping by. No. Like, there's money in the cannabis community. It is a powerful business community, and I want to be connected to it.
Yeah, and
for all kinds,
it has become essential.
For all kinds of reasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Maria, I got a very, very important question, because, you know, one of our big missions here is that, you know, we all aspire to inspire. So me and Ramon were able to be bold enough to take the leap, and we were a little scared ourselves when it came to the journalism and speaking publicly and all that. But we know that there's a lot of other people that are maybe scared to take that final step. So we need the media, you know, superhero that Maria is, to tell us, like, if there's a young lady or a young man up there of color or anybody else that is thinking about getting into journalism, now that you're saying it's much easier than when you got into it, being the first Latina lady in NPR 30 years ago, what advice would you give them, and how would they go about that?
I'm so glad that you asked this question, because we need journalists in the United States of America. We need a lot of journalists. We need Latino and Latina journalists. We need Black journalists. We need Caribbean journalists. We need immigrant journalists. We need journalists of every background. And we need them to not give up. This is not easy. But as you guys know, life is not easy.
Nothing in life worth having is easy. Everybody would have it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're like, oh my God, I just want to get a cushy job, you know, go to college, right, you know, and make a big salary. It's like, if you think that's easy, it's not easy.
And even that has changed now, so. And
even that, exacto, even that has changed. But also it's like the selling of your soul part, you know? So for me, you know, I didn't know it when I was a little girl, mostly because I never saw any journalists who looked like me. So I was never like, oh, I want to be a journalist. But now there are journalists who look like me. Mm-hmm. And so I want a young woman or a young man to say, like, oh my God, I want to do that. But then they have to understand that it's basically like a mission. It's not just like any job. Like, doing the work of journalism in the United States right now, it's like I don't want to equate us. It's a weird word that came into mind, maybe because I just smoked, but like freedom fighters,
Yes.
you know, like we're really, you know, we're being attacked right now by this administration. We are being attacked for being journalists. People think that, you know, oh my God, you know, they killed journalists in Iraq. Oh my God, they killed journalists in Mexico. Well, maybe they're not killing journalists right now in the United States, but we are being attacked. And how we do our work in the United States is being attacked. And so I want young people to just be like, I'm going to do it. And maybe they're watching television and they watch MSNBC and they see a Black anchor. Actually, she's an immigrant, daughter of immigrants, Joyanne Reed, who's like a huge success right now on MSNBC. I am lucky enough to every now and then be on her show. You know, maybe they see her and they're like, I want to be on cable news. I'm like, bet.
There you go.
Go be on cable news. There are others of us who are doing it differently. We're doing, you know, cannabis podcasts from our homes or whatever. But the mission of understanding that you want to do journalism, that you want to capture these stories, is understanding that we have such an important role in American history. And that's what keeps me going. That's why I keep doing the journalism at Latino USA. That's why we have our politics talk show in the thick. That's why I wrote the book, Once I Was You.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'll go when I'm invited to do television wherever, because because I talked about that sense of responsibility. I feel really responsible. And so I just hope they never give up, and that they, again, it's not easy, pero nada es fácil. Nada es fácil.
Thank
But
you for
jump
those
in.
kind
We
words.
need them. Yeah, we need them. We need them badly.
Because me and Ramon always try to, promote the same thing, but we're not as accomplished as you are. So, we need them to know it's not just us that feel like that. Everybody feels like that. Like, this is a time when now, anybody can really have their voice heard and can really take things to another level, thanks to the internet, thanks to all the virtual stuff, that unlike when you started, you had to go through certain gates and certain parameters to get on the screen. Now things have changed, and people really need to capitalize off of that and really, let the light shine, on the world.
As you were talking, I was thinking about Dices and Mero. I mean, Dices and Mero, they were just shooting the shit, doing stand-up, whatever. And now they're like huge successes on Showtime, which is good because, Mero has 4 kids. So I'm like, Jesus. That's a lot of bills to pay right there.
Gotcha.
But I just think it's really important that we realize that, whether it's Frederick Douglass, and people are like, who's Frederick Douglass? So Frederick Douglass, Trump is so stupid he thought he was alive. He actually talked about, he's so stupid. But, Frederick Douglass was born into slavery, and then became a free man, and then was the first black man to create and run a newspaper called the North Star. His statue is on 110th Street and Central Park North, right here, if you ever want to see it. And so he was like the father of saying we have...
Be around for smoking in front of Frederick Douglass. Shout out.
Well, look at his hair. I definitely think Frederick Douglass. No disrespect.
He looked like he was smoking.
I did receive the Frederick Douglass 200 award. So I received that from one of his ancestors. Gave me the award.
Oh shit!
But if you look at that statue and you look at Frederick Douglass's crazy ass hair. Mm-hmm. You do think like he had something in that pipe.
Something. He might have been growing or something, right?
So Frederick Douglass teaches us that we are part of a continuum of correcting the narrative in this country.
It's our job.
That is our job. And so we do it in a small scale, in telling the history to our kids so that my son knows the history, right? Proper history of this country. But we also do it by writing a book or by doing podcasts or becoming journalists. Absolutely.
Well, you're making a huge step, right? Because, for example, for yourself, right, you got Raul, right? Raul was pro-cannabis and all that shit. Mom now is becoming a little bit pro-cannabis. Not saying she's ready to consume, but now she's like willing to have conversations and all that other stuff, right? So you already did a big job by pretty much influencing the home, right? So now you went off on this 30-year journey. So, of course, a lot of influence.
I hope so. It's I don't walk around like that. And by the way, I'm only 5 feet tall. So when you guys we look up to her, I'm like, actually, nobody looks up to me. Really, the truth is, nobody looks up to me. But I do take my my role in this country super seriously. I was born in Mexico. I'm a proud Mexican woman, immigrant woman. I'm an American citizen now. And I fight to try to be proud of what's good in this country. But I understand that doesn't happen because other people are going to make it happen. It's going to happen because we're going to make it happen, not somebody else. We got to make it happen.
There you go.
Exactly. Part of our goal is here, like, me and Ramon always say, even if we're not exactly the ones in our movement to exactly take things to the next level. Hopefully we'll inspire people that look like us to be like us or bigger, and that is part of the goal.
Y'all sell yourself short. You keep on saying like, we're tiny, we're like, and I'm like, I think when you think about trying to do a business like yours in New York City, when you're kind of breaking through all kinds of barriers, I think it's really cool. I sadly was never able to be at your spot. I heard all about it. I'm hoping one day to be, post-pandemic, to be in the space of the Happy Munkey, the actual space.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think big. Don't keep selling yourselves of like we're just tiny and we
We try to be
That
humble.
means a lot coming from you.
Absolutely.
That brings me to our next question, Maria. We ask everybody that's ever been on here the $1 million question.
Yeah, and I'm
we're
curious
really
for hers.
curious
Yeah,
to
I'm
know
curious.
about you and your super mind and opinion of what you would think. So we asked everyone if you had to describe Happy Munkey, the movement, the media,
Everything
the
you've
events,
heard.
everything you've heard in one word, what would it be and why?
one word?
One word.
One word.
Damn.
One word.
Well, the first word I thought of was joy,
Why joy?
just because you guys seem to have a lot of fun. But then I thought freedom. And those two are kind of related. I just think that, we are living through really tough times right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected, somebody said to me, the most interesting art was created in the most horrible times, during World War II, during the Vietnam War. Phenomenal art was created. And so I just said, artists and free thinkers have got to help us get through this. And so in that sense, I really feel like we all are pushing boundaries in seeking freedom because we are being caged in physically,
Yeah, man.
mentally. White supremacy is real. It is structural. And so, being caged in and fighting against white supremacy is a thing. And so we need to consistently believe in ourselves. You need to have joy. That's a really important part. In some ways, maybe cannabis, that's something else that I get from cannabis is the capacity to find joy. Like right now, my son will ask me, what are we eating? And we'll figure out what we're going to eat. And then I'll probably smoke because he'll roll something for me. And then I'll go walk the dog and I'll look at the moon, and I'll commune with the moon and I'll look at the trees and I'll, feel the breeze. And this is all for me. It's very ancestral. It's very ancestral. And so that's what we need. So in a way, I'm saying go back ancestrally, but also I'm saying be liberated and free and looking towards the future. But the root of it is you have to find joy, and joy is really hard. I'm in therapy. I talk about all of these things very publicly. I just posted on my Twitter that I'm in therapy again. My therapist is amazing, Latina, a refugee survivor herself. And we just talk a lot about the ancestral power that we have and how we have to take this moment of so much difficulty. Y no hay de otras. Either we're gonna go down, sinking down because we can't, or we're gonna have to find a way to bring ourselves up and think of possibility. I think of, I've allowed myself to imagine a little bit like, oh my God. I mean, I'm not taking any vaccine anytime soon. Certainly not under. No, not certainly not before this election. I'm not doing anything. But I've begun to imagine like a world beyond, and I'm like, we have to start. We have to start playing in that world of possibility. We have to.
It's time to emerge.
I think so.
Well, this is a time of disruption, and that's why right now, me and Ramon, we don't have control of anything else. We try not to get caught up in the doom and gloom because they get enough of that from CNN and CNBC. So we try to stay positive and optimistic and show people different perspectives, and that during all of this, we can still continue moving forward.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to thank you, Maria, man, because we know you could be anywhere in the world and you're here with us.
Yeah.
And you drop so many jewels for us, and you definitely inspire a lot of people that watch and help them understand that, when you put your mind and your heart into something, you can accomplish great things. So thank you so much. But before we leave, we want you to again tell people about the new book, where they can find you, what things does you and your companies have coming up for the rest of 2020, so they can stay up to date and know that Maria is officially part of the family of cannabis and everything that encompasses it.
So the book is out officially September 15th. You can pre-order it now. Yeah. So you can pre-order it now just through either find me on social media, Maria Hinojosa, or Simon & Schuster, Atria Books. And I just really want to say thank you. I mean, I feel like a lot of times what we're doing is that we're kind of living, well, we always are living in multiple worlds, right? That's how we do this, especially as immigrants, as Latinos. O sea, tenemos una puerta un pie en la casa y otro pie afuera. We're always kind of managing this. And so I just love the fact that a book that is, it is published by Simon & Schuster. That is like a big effing deal. Like, what? Simon & Schuster, like on 6th Avenue, like 49th Street. It has a whole building. Simon & Schuster has a whole building.
Shit.
So this is like a big effing deal.
Word.
And I'm super, super proud. My editor is Michelle Herrera Mulligan. She's Latina working at Simon & Schuster. My agent is Latina, Adriana Dominguez. So we are doing this in the mainstream. And at the same time, I'm really happy to be doing this. That is not necessarily the mainstream. I'll tell you, when I interviewed Cheech and from Cheech and Chong,
from Cheech and Chong,
the original.
Yes.
And I interviewed him like maybe, let's see, it would have been like maybe, let's say 12 years ago. And I said to him, like, did you ever imagine that Cheech and Chong would become mainstream? Because he actually had just sold out Las Vegas. In the middle of a recession, they had sold out Las Vegas. They were the only, Cheech and Chong were the only ones that sold it. And he said, sweetie, he said, I always knew we were mainstream.
Ooh.
I always knew we were mainstream.
That's surprising.
I always knew it. And it's true, right? Because when you think about Cheech and Chong, it's pretty freaking mainstream. Everybody knows who they are.
Word. Who the fuck doesn't know
Everybody.
who Cheech and Chong is, right?
Who doesn't know who Cheech and Chong is? And so it is, in fact, very mainstream. And so I appreciate being part of the mainstream, but it also, looking at it from different levels. And I'm very appreciative to the cannabis community and to the ancestors who brought cannabis to the forefront. I'm all about that. I stopped smoking. I actually I know it's people, but I thought it would. Yeah, I thought it was better to not smoke, but now this and that. So I don't know. I go back and forth. And also, I didn't know anything. It was only until this year that all I consumed was Reggie.
You said OG. It's okay. That's it. We took you away. Don't worry. Raul, no more Reggie for mom, my G. Come on.
He says no more Reggie for mom.
Only exotics.
Little plastic Ziplocs, I'm not going to reveal because, but like Reggie. Reggie.
It's over for Reggie. Don't worry, mom.
It's only now that I have.
That was awesome information, by the way.
Also, you should know, I'm one of those people who maybe, apart from people in the business, have been to more ¿cómo se llama? Dispensaries. Because before the pandemic, I was on a plane every week. So name the state where it's legal. I was going to a dispensary just to check it out. Let's just be like, what? So you can ask me anything about dispensaries in multiple states, and I have experience.
I love this. This is dope. So you're ready. You ready for this world over here, girl.
No, man, but you definitely have been like very enlightening. You know, I didn't know that all these things. Learned a lot. You know, definitely. You know, for people like us that are just getting our feet wet in journalism and media, really, you know, helps us see how far you can take it if you put your mind and your heart into it. You know.
Well, thank you to the both of you. You guys have made me think about things that really haven't thought about in decades.
Yeah.
So,
that's what we like. That's what we like.
So, Maria, thank you and your family for everything. We appreciate you. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Yes,
and
thank
for
you
all
for
the
your
jewels.
time. Gracias.
To everybody
Gracias.
out there, you already know this young lady dropped so many jewels from you in so many different aspects of life.
Yeah,
as always. You know, me and Ramon like to stay positive. We know it's definitely a rough year and definitely not easy for everybody, but we want everybody to remember you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later. For now, checking out Vlad, Maria, Ramon. Till the next episode. Peace, love, and happiness.
Peace, love, and happiness, yo. Paz, amor, y felicidad. Yeah.
What's good, everybody? This is your nigga Ralph, trying to keep you fresh with the info from Happy Munkey every single podcast. You already know what it is. If you haven't followed us yet, follow us on Instagram at @HappyMunkey_ or Happy Munkey Goodies. Now remember, that's monkey with a U. Also, if you haven't checked us out, we're on YouTube. So check out our channel, Happy Munkey TV. Keep us current, live, and everything with the culture.